Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take the entire history of a topic, grind it down into the most essential, surprising, and insightful nuggets, and deliver them straight to you.
And today, we're diving into Sylvester Stallone.
Exactly. You asked for the complete picture, not just the characters, not just the muscles or the box office numbers, but the man who really fundamentally shaped the modern action genre.
And while doing that, he navigated these just wild extremes of critical failure and eventually ultimate artistic validation.
That's our mission today. We are going beyond Rocky and Rambo to decode how this one singular figure managed an achievement that's almost unheard of in Hollywood.
Right, starring in a box office #1 film across 6 consecutive decades.
It's incredible.
Think about that longevity. That streak runs from the 1970s right up to the 2020s. The only other person to do that is Harrison Ford.
That kind of sustained cultural presence just demands a deep dive into the creative engine that was driving him.
And the sources we've got are fantastic for this. They don't just, list his filmography. They trace his career chronologically, but they focus heavily on the adversity.
Yeah, the adversity, his output as a writer and director, and that incredible, almost absurd swing between winning the highest cinematic honors.
And on the other hand, accumulating this alarming number of the lowest, the Golden Raspberry Awards.
It's perfect material for mining those deep, compelling insights and doing it quickly.
I mean, the central paradox of his life is just so stark. The man who created a global film empire, grossing over $7.5 billion worldwide?
An insane number.
And then you find out that in his youth, he was defined by poverty, by homelessness, and this very public physical impairment that really should have barred him from ever acting.
It's that contrast, that struggle versus the eventual, just overwhelming achievement. We have to explore that.
So let's unpack this. Let's start right at the very beginning, where his life began with a real medical challenge.
Okay, so Sylvester Gardenzio Stallone was born in Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan, July 6, 1946. And even his family background. It reads like a character list for a screenplay.
It really does. His father, Francesco Frank Stallone Sr., was an Italian immigrant. He worked as a hairdresser, but also, and this is the bizarre part,
An avid polo player.
a hairdresser and a polo enthusiast. That juxtaposition just suggests a certain theatricality in the family DNA from the get-go.
And his mother, Jackie Stallone, was maybe even more flamboyant.
Oh, definitely. A celebrity astrologer and a women's professional wrestling promoter. That high-octane mix of working-class grit and, celebrity flash, it certainly set the stage.
And of course, he has his younger brother, Frank Stallone, who became a musician and was a pretty consistent collaborator on his film projects.
There's a great little nugget about his name, too. His mother actually wanted to call him Tyrone, after Tyrone Power.
Oh, wow.
But his father insisted on Sylvester. And that middle name, Gardenzio, is this altered form of the Italian Gaudenzio. He apparently shortened it to Enzio a lot.
But the most defining feature of his public life, the thing that is just inseparable from his entire screen persona, is that signature look. The slight snarl, the drooping lip, and that slightly slurred speech pattern.
And the sources are clear, this wasn't an acting choice. It was a direct consequence of a really serious complication during his birth.
That's the core defining detail that really dictated his entire early path. During his delivery, the obstetricians had to use 2 pairs of forceps.
Right. And in the process, they accidentally severed a nerve.
And that's the source of it. The facial paralysis on the lower left side, it impacts his lip, part of his tongue, and his chin. It's what creates that distinctive cadence and the snarl that we all associate with Rocky Balboa.
Just think about the immense psychological implication of that for a boy who wants to pursue a career that depends on, clear communication and conventionally appealing looks.
And it wasn't just visible. That physical difference led directly to some serious bullying in his childhood. His initial nickname was Binky.
Which schoolmates then cruelly morphed into Stinky. So he quickly changed his name to Mike, or Michael.
It's just incredible how that early rejection, that cruelty, it forced him to develop coping mechanisms that would later define his global success.
Right. Instead of retreating, he turned to 2 things. Bodybuilding, as a way to gain a physical presence and some dominance.
And acting, as a means of transforming his identity and his voice.
It's that classic narrative, isn't it? Transformation through self-discipline. But if you look at his formal educational projections, absolutely no one saw this coming.
Get this, a guidance counselor once reviewed his academic path and told his mother that he was only, and I'm quoting here, suited to run a sorting machine or to be an assistant electrician, primarily in the area of elevator operations.
An elevator operator. It's shocking in retrospect.
You have to wonder if he kept that evaluation card and just looked at it every time he signed a $20 million contract. It just underscores the deep adversity.
Well, his academic path was pretty erratic, too, which fits the instability of his youth. His parents divorced when he was 11. He stayed with his dad at first, then moved to Philadelphia with his remarried mother when he was 15.
He was just shuffled through different institutions, Charlotte Hall Military Academy, Miami-Dade College.
And then, for a brief moment, he had this little bit of privilege. He spent 2 years abroad at the American College of Switzerland. That was 65 to 67.
And from there, he came back to the U.S. to formally study drama at the University of Miami from 67 to 69. But he didn't actually complete the degree at that time.
The financial pressures, the survival pressures, they were just too great.
But here's a fantastic nugget about the sheer tenacity of the man. He never forgot about not having that degree.
Right. Decades later, in 1998, the University of Miami revisited his case.
And they recognized his immense life experience and his acting credits. I mean, a global filmography that had earned billions, and they granted him a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. He literally leveraged his career as college credit.
And by the time he got that degree, he had certainly earned it. Especially when you look at that grim period between 1968 and 1974, which he described as just a constant struggle for survival.
During that time, he was trying out different professional names. He was on stage as Mike Stallone until 69, before finally settling on Sylvester Stallone in 1970.
He was in New York, sharing an apartment with his then-girlfriend, Sasha Sack, and she was basically keeping them afloat by waitressing.
And Stallone was taking these desperate odd jobs, cleaning cages at a zoo, working as a theater usher.
Until he got fired for trying to scalp tickets.
Right, so even then, he was willing to bend the rules just to scrape by.
But the absolute defining low point, the kind of story that really shapes a legend, came when he was evicted and had nowhere to go.
He admitted to sleeping for 3 weeks in the Port Authority bus terminal in New York City.
Imagine that, just completely out of options. Sleeping rough in that iconic, bustling, but ultimately cold and impersonal transportation hub.
And it was that profound desperation that directly led to his first starring role. We are talking about the 1970 softcore pornography film, The Party at Kitty and Studs.
He got paid only $200 for 2 days of work.
And the motivation behind that choice is absolutely critical to understanding his struggle. He later stated, and this is a raw quote, that it was a choice between doing that movie or robbing someone. He was at the very end of my rope.
That financial extremity is the context. You have to view all his early work through that lens.
And of course, the second he became famous, that film was immediately repackaged and retitled Italian Stallion to capitalize on his success. It turned a desperate act into a marketing gimmick.
Before Rocky, rejection was just his constant companion. He auditioned for an extra role in The Godfather in 1972 and was just rejected outright.
He was nearly invisible in a background role in Barbra Streisand's What's Up, Doc? But he started accumulating small parts, and he finally landed his first proper role as Stanley in The Lords of Flatbush in 1974.
He also starred in a 1973 independent film, No Place to Hide, which had this strange afterlife. It was later recut as Rebel, and then...
This is the bizarre part.
It was edited again, dubbed, and turned into this Woody Allen-style parody called A Man Called Rainbow.
So even his invisible period had this weird, self-aware irony to it.
So all of that struggle, all that rejection, all the desperation, it all came to a head in one singular moment that just defined his future, March 24th, 1975.
Right. Stallone was watching the fight between the heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali and this extreme long-shot contender, Chuck Wepner.
This is the moment of inspiration that changed everything. Wepner, known as the Bayonne Bleeder, was a total journeyman. He was completely outmatched.
But he did the unthinkable. He managed to knock Ali down in the 9th round before eventually losing in the 15th. Stallone saw the underdog pushing the legend to the absolute limit.
And Stallone is described leaving that fight and just feeling this overwhelming creative compulsion. He went home, sat down, and in this remarkable burst of energy, he completed the first draft of the Rocky script in just 3 days.
That emotional intensity, the fusion of his own experiences fighting uphill with the literal fight he just witnessed, it just poured onto the page.
Now, there's a critical legal nugget here. While Wepner was clearly the main catalyst, Stallone later claimed he wasn't the sole inspiration. He cited influences like Rocky Graziano's autobiography.
But Wepner did eventually file a lawsuit against Stallone.
And that lawsuit was ultimately settled for an undisclosed amount. So it acknowledges the complexity of inspiration versus, intellectual property. But the narrative connection to that Ali Wepner fight is absolutely undeniable. It's the core mythos of the film's origin.
And what came next is the stuff of Hollywood legend. It was the ultimate test of Stallone's tenacity. Producers Irwin Winkler and Robert Chardoff, they were blown away by the script.
They offered him $350,000 for the rights, a massive sum for a struggling actor at the time.
And their plan was to cast established A-listers, people like Robert Redford or Burt Reynolds as Rocky Balboa.
And most people in his financial position, literally just years removed from sleeping in a bus station, would have taken the money and run.
But this is the moment. This is where Stallone showed the world he was an auteur and a shrewd, almost insane risk-taker. He refused the $350,000.
He leveraged his own script against his entire future.
He made this iron-willed ultimatum. He would only sell the script if he was guaranteed the lead role of Rocky Balboa.
The studio eventually agreed, but only under the condition that they drastically cut the production budget, just to minimize the financial risk of casting a complete, physically distinctive unknown.
And that low-budget film, made under intense pressure, became Rocky in 1976. And the critical reaction was immediate and profound.
Roger Ebert, one of the most respected critics of the era, suggested that Stallone's performance was so nuanced and sensitive that he could become the next Marlon Brando.
The audacity of that prediction. For the man they suggested should be an elevator operator.
And the history he made in 1977 wasn't just about acting. It confirmed his cinematic talent across the board. Stallone became only the third person in history, after Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles, to be nominated for 2 Academy Awards for the same film.
Best Actor and Best Original Screenplay.
That staggering duality is often forgotten today when we just think of him as an action star. He was immediately validated as a serious writer and a serious performer.
And the film itself won big. Best Picture, Best Directing for John G. Avildsen, and Best Film Editing.
The cultural legacy of Rocky is just immense. We still talk about the Rocky Steps at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's become a pilgrimage site.
Right, the permanent statue in the city, the character's induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. It transcended cinema, became part of American folklore.
And critically, Rocky was not a one-off. It wasn't a stroke of luck. It was the foundation of a massive long-term franchise that Stallone actively controlled.
He immediately took the reins. For Rocky II in 1979, he wrote, he directed, and he starred, replacing Avildsen as director.
Which was a serious sign of confidence in his own creative control. And it paid off. It grossed $200 million.
Then came Rocky III in 1982, where the physical transformation really became the story. Again, he wrote, directed, and starred.
And this is where he fully embraced that hyper-masculine aesthetic. The sources detail his rigorous training regimen for the role, claiming he reduced his body fat percentage to an astonishing all-time low of 2.8%.
Wait, hold on. 2.8% body fat that's scientifically extreme.
Oh, absolutely.
Most athletes are above 5%. Anything below that carries serious health risks. Why did he push it that far?
It was absolutely for impact, and it signaled a major shift in his career. The early Rocky was a little doughy, right? It reflected the working class struggle.
Yeah.
The Rocky III, Rocky fighting Mr. T's Clubber Lang, had to be a superhero. And that level of extreme definition required immense sacrifice, dehydration, exhaustion, purely to achieve that cinematic ideal that would define the 1980s action hero.
And the 1980s became the decade of that extreme physical cinema. The pivot from the sensitive, dramatic boxer to the hyper-lethal soldier solidified Stallone's dominance. In 1982, he introduced John Rambo.
Completing the yin and yang of his career.
Exactly. Rambo, who was introduced in First Blood, was conceived as a PTSD-plagued Vietnam veteran, a former Green Beret.
It was based on David Morrell's novel, but Stallone's writer's touch was essential here. He significantly altered the script during production.
And that alteration was key. The Rambo in the original novel was much more ruthlessly violent.
And critics, surprisingly, praised Stallone for making his cinematic Rambo seem human, a victim of circumstance and trauma rather than just a mindless killing machine.
That humanizing touch is what allowed the franchise to thrive. It eventually spanned 5 films, all the way up to 2019.
If Rocky is the conscious, the aspirational, sensitive side Rambo, as Stallone himself has noted, is the unconscious, the buried trauma and the violent reaction to society's rejection.
And This dual franchise dominance established Stallone as one of the two biggest action stars of the entire decade, locked in this intense decade-long rivalry with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That rivalry was pure box office gold, and it served as fantastic, if aggressive, marketing for both of them.
They were constantly attacking each other in the press, vying for dominance, trying to surpass the other with bigger box office takes.
Bigger weapons on screen, higher body counts.
It's incredible that the competition was so fierce it led to direct sabotage. Which brings us to the famous or infamous story surrounding the 1992 disaster Stop, or My Mom Will Shoot.
This is one of the most illustrative anecdotes about the ruthlessness of 80s Hollywood competition. Schwarzenegger later admitted that he publicly faked intense interest in the poor quality script for that movie.
Specifically to lure Stallone into making it.
Exactly, to get him to take that film instead of a better rival action project.
And Stallone took the bait. He signed on to that critically savaged comedy based on the false rumor that Schwarzenegger was desperate for the role.
It's a masterful, long con troll, and it resulted in one of Stallone's most regretted roles and a huge career embarrassment.
That detail just perfectly captures the competitive energy of that era. But throughout this period, Stallone was constantly trying to flex his creative muscle beyond just Rambo and Rocky. He was taking on multiple roles as a filmmaker.
His directorial debut came pretty early, in 1978, with Paradise Alley. It was a family drama about professional wrestling set in 1940s Hell's Kitchen.
And he wrote, directed, and starred in it. It was clearly character-driven, but it was not the commercial success that Rocky was.
He also directed a film he didn't star in, which is a keynote on his range, Staying Alive in 1983, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever.
And this is a beautiful case study in critical failure versus commercial success. The film was universally panned by critics. They found it dramatically thin and just over the top.
And yet, it was a major commercial hit. It grossed $127 million worldwide, and surprisingly, set a record at the time for the biggest opening weekend ever for a musical film.
So that success shows that even when critics dismissed him, his brand and his ability to draw an audience were immensely powerful.
But that commercial goodwill didn't save his other genre attempts. The late 80s and early 90s were marred by some major bumps.
Oh yeah. I mean, who can forget the arm wrestling drama Over the Top from 1987, poorly received, and a significant commercial failure.
And his attempts at mainstream comedy were notoriously disastrous.
Rhinestone in 1984, where he played a wannabe country singer opposite Dolly Parton. That's a famous failure that earned him his first major Razzie recognition.
He regretted that role so much, he revealed he turned down the chance to star in the successful adventure romance, Romancing the Stone, to do Rhinestone instead.
And then there was the 1991 comedy Oscar. Another financial and critical failure.
So after those misfires, he had to engineer a major, targeted comeback in the early 1990s, focusing intensely on high-concept action.
And he did it masterfully. Cliffhanger in 1993 was a massive, immediate, worldwide success. It grossed $171 million. It proved he was still a viable action headliner.
He followed that immediately with Demolition Man in '93, co-starring Wesley Snipes and Sandra Bullock.
And that film was a surprising critical success. It debuted at #1 and earned 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, a solid mark for an action film, precisely because of its unexpected satirical undercurrent about political correctness and futurist society.
Then came The Specialist in 1994, which cemented his peak earning power despite its critical failure. While reviews were overwhelmingly negative, the film was a strong commercial success. It grossed $170 million worldwide.
And that success led to one of those legendary Hollywood deals that define the excessive spending of the 1990s. He signed a staggering $60 million three-picture deal with Universal.
Which instantly made him the second star after Jim Carrey to command $20 million per film.
Right, and for our listener, it's important to remember these contracts often function on a pay-or-play basis, meaning the studio guarantees the actor that fee even if the film isn't made.
And that's the twist. This mega deal expired in February 2000, and Stallone had not made any films under that specific contract.
It's such an illustrative nugget of the late 90s Hollywood financial bubble. A $60 million guarantee was offered, and yet the project's just dissolved.
Before we move on, we have to acknowledge the deep-cut Trey Parker and Matt Stone nugget from the mid-90s. In their short, Your Studio and You, from 1995, Stallone appears.
And he speaks entirely in his Rocky Balboa voice, which required subtitles. It's this incredibly self-deprecating moment where he yells about why the studio keeps using his Rocky character.
Only for the narrator to calm him down with a wine cooler and call him Brainiac.
He's muttering, "Stupid sheep studio." It just shows a fantastic willingness to poke fun at his own public image, which is a level of self-awareness that often gets overlooked.
The early 2000s were undoubtedly a challenging period for him. The big deals evaporated, and he really entered a phase of critical and commercial decline.
Yeah, from 2000 to 2005, he had this string of low-performing films: Get Carter, Driven, Avenging Angelo, and Detox.
These films just struggled to connect with audiences who were transitioning away from that pure 80s action aesthetic toward more complex superhero or effects-driven cinema.
But amid that slump, there was one surprising box office monster: Spy Kids 3D Game Over in 2003.
He played the villain, the toy maker, in that Robert Rodriguez family adventure, and that film, entirely outside his typical lane, was a massive success. Grossed almost $200 million worldwide.
It proved his brand recognition remained immense, even when he was playing a supporting role to children.
And during this difficult period, he was actively branching out. He co-presented the NBC reality series The Contender in 2005, a boxing competition show.
Returning to his comfort zone in the sports world, he also released his fitness and nutrition guide, Sly Moves, offering fans a pretty candid glimpse into the physical routines that sustained his career.
And that career, which many people thought was winding down, found its second wind by returning to its origin. In 2006, 16 years after the critically disappointing Rocky V, he launched Rocky Balboa.
This was the ultimate comeback vehicle, entirely self-generated. Stallone wrote, directed, and starred. He specifically viewed this as the emotional, appropriate conclusion to the series that Rocky V had failed to deliver.
And it was a massive success, both critically and commercially. It grossed $155 million worldwide against a very modest $24 million budget. Just remarkable efficiency.
And critics widely praised his performance for its genuine depth, its sincerity, and that sense of closure.
He immediately leveraged that goodwill to revive his other titan. In 2008, he reprised his other iconic role, writing and directing the fourth installment of the Rambo franchise, simply titled Rambo.
And that film also proved commercially viable. It grossed $113 million worldwide.
These two revivals created the perfect launching pad for him to develop his ultimate nostalgia project, the Expendables franchise. He wrote, directed, and starred in the first one in 2010.
The genius of The Expendables was its ensemble cast strategy. It was a reunion of the 80s and 90s action heroes: Jason Statham, Jet Li, Dolph Lundgren, Bruce Willis, and eventually Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And that strategy was spectacular. The first Expendables gave Stallone his biggest opening weekend ever. It proved the collective power of that action movie iconography.
It's important to note, though, that the brand faded. The fourth installment, Expendables in 2023, was a massive failure, both critically and commercially. It became the lowest-grossing film in the entire series.
But the real capstone of his modern career, the moment that secured his legacy beyond just commercialism, is the Creed series, which began in 2015.
Right. He returned as Rocky, now a mentor to Adonis Creed, the son of his old rival, Apollo Creed.
And this role brought him a level of widespread critical praise and recognition that had completely eluded him for decades. He won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. He got a Critics' Choice Award.
And most poetically, he received his third Academy Award nomination 40 years after his first nomination for playing the exact same character.
That cyclical validation is just astounding. It's Hollywood saying, we might have missed the nuance in the middle, but we recognize the genius of the original character creation. It completes his full transformation from writer to respected character actor.
And critically, he's shown remarkable adaptability to the 21st century media landscape. He successfully transitioned into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Stakar Ogord in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Volume 3.
He also recognized the power of the streaming boom. He made his television starring debut with the Paramount Plus series Tulsa King, and he even embraced the docu-reality format with The Family Stallone in 2023.
Few of his 80s peers have managed to pivot across so many different media platforms so successfully.
It's just crucial to reiterate his prolific work behind the camera, as it's so often overlooked by the size of his biceps. The sources list him as having written or co-written 20 films,
including all the major franchises, plus films like FIST and Cliffhanger.
And he directed 8 feature films, which includes 4 Rocky sequels and 1 Rambo installment. That makes him an industry quadruple threat: writer, director, producer, and star.
And his creative work is ongoing. He wrote the upcoming action film A Working Man, and there's continued development for a Demolition Man 2 sequel and a Rocky prequel television series.
Although producer Irwin Winkler has expressed some skepticism about that Rocky prequel series format, he sees the core story as inherently cinematic. But
With Stallone's tenacity, you shouldn't count out his ability to continue adapting his intellectual property for every new platform.
shifting focus from his creative output, the intensity that defines Stallone's on-screen commitment also marked his personal life, which was often subject to massive public scrutiny.
Particularly his marriages and the physical toll of his work.
Yeah, he's been married 3 times. His first marriage was to Sasha Zak from 1974 to 1985, which yielded 2 sons. Tragically, their elder son, Sage, passed away in 2012 at age 36 from heart disease.
And their younger son, Sergio, was diagnosed with autism early in life, a personal struggle Stallone was publicly transparent about.
His second marriage, to model and actress Brigitte Nielsen from 85 to 87, happened at the absolute height of his 80s fame.
It was highly publicized, intensely covered by the tabloids. It really reflected the massive cultural footprint he had during that decade.
And his current and longest marriage is to Jennifer Flavin. They met in 1988, married in 1997 after a brief and very dramatic separation in the mid-90s.
Right, that was after DNA testing revealed he wasn't the father of a child he thought he had with another model.
They have 3 successful daughters, Sophia, Sistine, and Scarlett, who even shared the role of Golden Globe ambassador in 2017.
It was a shock to the public when Flavin filed for divorce in 2022 after 25 years of marriage.
But then just over a month later, they reconciled, putting this very abrupt and very public end to the divorce proceedings. That kind of high-stakes, high-profile drama is a consistent thread throughout his life.
It's also worth highlighting the deep ties to his family and his professional life, particularly his brother, Frank Stallone.
Right, the musician. He didn't just show up. He contributed key theme songs, including the theme for Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and most notably the hit song Far From Over for Staying Alive.
Which actually peaked at number 10 on the US charts.
Now let's talk about the literal price of his on-screen persona. Stallone has always been known for doing the majority of his own stunts, and the list of physical injuries is just staggering. It's a permanent invoice for his career.
He literally broke a finger trying to save a penalty kick against Pele while filming Escape to Victory. But the really intense damage came on the action sets.
Consider the dedication to realism in Rocky IV. Stallone was so committed to making the fight look authentic that he told Dolph Lundgren, who played Ivan Drago, to punch him as hard as possible in the chest.
And that single, powerful blow caused his heart sac to swell. He ended up in intensive care for 4 days.
That's not just dedication. That is a fundamental willingness to risk serious bodily harm for the sake of the scene.
And decades later, that commitment almost cost him his life again. While filming The Expendables, a fight scene with Stone Cold Steve Austin resulted in Stallone breaking his neck.
He needed surgery and the permanent insertion of a metal plate.
It reinforces the theme. If Rambo is his unconscious, his body became the physical archive of that character's violence.
We must now address the legal and political facets of his life, maintaining that strict, impartial reporting standard defined by our sources.
The legal issues have been intermittent but high profile.
In 2007, he faced legal issues in Australia. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges related to possessing the synthetic human growth hormone gentropin, which was discovered by customs officials in his luggage.
The sources also detail multiple allegations of sexual assault spanning different eras, 1986, the early 1990s, and 2001.
And given the sensitive nature of these claims, we have to note that Stallone has consistently and vehemently denied all allegations.
For example, regarding the 1986 allegation, his then-wife, Brigitte Nielsen, publicly defended him, stating she was with him at the time.
More recently, in 2018, the Los Angeles DA's office reviewed the 1990s allegation but decided not to charge him, citing a lack of corroborating witnesses to support the claims. Stallone then countered by filing a police report against the accuser.
There's also the matter of the 1987 settlement paid to his half-sister, Toni Ann Filiti, concerning abuse allegations. While his representatives claimed she was blackmailing him and denied the allegations entirely, her son publicly supported his mother's claims. It remains a complex and heavily disputed part of his history.
Shifting to his political stance, the sources reveal a complex, nonpartisan history that doesn't fit neatly into any box.
He has supported Republicans, like endorsing John McCain in 2008, but he also has a history of donating to prominent Democrats, including Joe Biden and Chris Dodd. He explicitly does not identify as a committed party member.
What's truly remarkable, given his iconic filmography, is his stated position on firearms.
Right. He's a staunch advocate for gun control and has been described by sources as the most anti-gun celebrity in Hollywood.
That is the ultimate public paradox. The man who made a career out of wielding these massive, high-powered weapons on screen is fundamentally opposed to their widespread availability in real life.
His more recent political involvement, however, has been highly visible. After the 2024 election, he attended an event at Mar-a-Lago where he publicly praised Donald Trump.
He called him a mythical character and the second George Washington, specifically comparing him to the enduring appeal of Rocky Balboa.
And that positioning led to a specific political appointment. The sources confirmed that in January 2025, Trump announced Stallone would serve alongside Mel Gibson and Jon Voight in a new position, a special ambassador to Hollywood.
With the stated mission being to bring back film business that was lost to foreign countries.
That appointment shows his continued cultural significance, linking his massive film career directly to the political sphere. Outside of film and politics, Stallone is also a noted art collector and, perhaps surprisingly to some, a devoted painter.
His faith journey also reflects a complex narrative. Raised Catholic, he drifted away during the peak of his fame, but stated he rediscovered his faith around 2006 after one of his daughters was born ill.
But by 2010, he clarified that he saw himself as pretty spiritual and believing in the spirit of man, but not necessarily belonging to a structured church, though he respects the foundation religion provides.
He also spent a period applying his boxing knowledge off-screen, serving as a boxing promoter in the 1980s, signing champions like Sean O'Grady and Aaron Pryor under his company Tiger Eye Productions.
We have to close our analysis by examining the extreme critical range of his career. Stallone is unique in that he's recognized with immense reverence at the highest levels of cinematic achievement.
While simultaneously being ridiculed at the lowest, he has touched both poles of Hollywood recognition.
The highs are genuinely stellar and prove his initial creative promise. He received 3 Academy Award nominations, including a Best Picture win for Rocky. He has 2 BAFTA nominations.
And his performance in Creed alone secured him the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor in 2016 and a Critics' Choice Award.
His global recognition is strong, too. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, an honorary Caesar Award in 1992, and the Montecito Award in 2016.
But then you have the Golden Raspberry Awards, the Razzies, and he holds a truly astonishing, almost record-breaking number of nominations and wins for Worst Actor. It suggests that when he missed spectacularly.
He was a serial winner in the 80s and early 90s, particularly when he tried to stray into comedy or dramas that just didn't suit him.
He won for Rhinestone in '84, then a double win in '85 for Rambo, First Blood Part 2 and Rocky IV. He won again in '88 for Rambo III.
And infamously for Stop. Or My Mom Will Shoot in 1992, the film he was trolled into making.
He even won Worst Director for Rocky IV. And even in his comeback era, he was still receiving the anti-accolade. He won Worst Supporting Actor for Spy Kids 3D in 2003, and then again recently for Expendables in 2023.
It seems the Razzies were consistently nominating him because his failures were often tied to massive commercial budgets and public expectation. When he was bad, he was highly visible.
He truly defined the blockbuster action hero, while simultaneously racking up records for the worst performances of the year.
However, his ultimate summary at the Razzies is perhaps the most fitting ending to his dramatic arc. In 2015, following the immense success and critical acclaim of Creed,
he was honored with the Razzie Redeemer Award.
The Redeemer Award. It recognizes a career turnaround, someone who went from being a fixture on the worst lists to achieving genuine artistic recognition.
It's the highest form of backhanded compliment, symbolizing his complete journey from artistic zero to hero, celebrated even by his harshest critics. #TagOutro.
So that full deep dive into Sylvester Stallone reveals not just a movie star, but a figure of profound, almost stubborn tenacity. He navigated this massive contradiction, born with an impediment that should have silenced him.
He used writing, the power of the script for Rocky, Rambo, the Expendables, to literally dictate his own destiny.
And he achieved staggering commercial success, and decades later, profound critical validation for the very same characters that were born out of his initial desperation.
That complexity, the light and the dark, the sensitive writer and the hyper-violent soldier is captured perfectly in his own words. Rocky is the conscious, in broad strokes, of the same character, and Rambo would be his unconscious.
Rocky is the aspiration, the fight for decency. Rambo is the trauma, the reaction to the world that rejected him. And that duality brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the learner, something to mull over.
Throughout his career, Stallone has maintained one persistent, long-shelved passion project, a script about the life of Edgar Allan Poe.
And Poe, like Stallone, was defined by early poverty, struggle, and an intense grappling with darkness and self-destruction.
So considering Stallone's own history, sleeping in the bus station, coping with a physical difference that led to bullying, the immense personal tragedies, and his lifelong creative struggles against the image of the brute.
What elements of Poe's dark genius might have resonated most deeply with the man whose entire arc took him from being cruelly nicknamed Stinky to being globally known as Sly? That's your assignment. Explore the darkness beneath the muscles. Go deep.